Hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. I'm Richard Edwards, and joining me on his own today is Graham McDonald. How are you, Graham?
Morning, Richard. Really good. It's a beautiful sunny day out here in the glorious West Auckland, so it's going to be a good one.
How long did the Australian hangover take to wear off?
It didn't. I tell you, I was a very, very, very good boy, apart from possibly one night where I may have overindulged slightly, but I'm getting better at this. As I get older, I get better at this. So I did manage to pour myself onto the plane and make it home again. With those Australians, they do like their flavoured pops.
How is AIMVIA going? I mean, how is the import trade over there going?
It's a bit of a success story, but it's one of those ones where you just can't tell behind the scenes what's happening. The numbers have been trending up, and they've been doing really well. And for those of you that are involved in the trade in some ways, you know this. It's almost like a little dirty secret that they've been going up and up and up. And it's not this exponential explosion of volume that everyone thought it would be. But as the regulations have changed under the new series of regulations they're working with, it just opens up a lot more opportunities. They take longer in turn to feed into the marketplace, but there's real commercial gain being made by people. And you know what? The same old story. It's Kiwis in many places that are leading the way, either in terms of provisioning stock or providing the logistics or the support services on the ground. And there are more that are still having a peek over there to see what sort of commercial gain there could be to be made. But it's not a bad place to be. AIMVIA is like any trade association, and ask David Vincent about this. VIA just couldn't trumpet its successes in many cases because their success was in stopping something from happening that you never knew existed. And so you can't broadcast a win for something that actually wasn't, if you know what I mean. And that's what
I do.
Itself.
So. Yeah. Are they having as many shipping issues as we are? I mean, what's their...
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, and different ones and worse too. I mean, the wharf issues there, logistics, inspections, the whole inspection process they go through in terms of the notifications, the appointments you have to make for inspections, the inspectors not turning up, vehicles being sent to different ports, notifications going to different ports. It's a real mess. And like I say, if you want to get involved in Australia, you've got to have a pretty thick constitution. You've got to have really good systems. It is not a place to play for the amateur. It really isn't.
Yeah. No, it's a challenging market would be, I guess, the best way to describe it.
Yep, but
profitable.
It's rewarding.
Yeah.
If you can make it work, it's rewarding. But you can't just walk in there like a little babe in the wood and expect to just bring a couple of cars on a boat, drop them off and sell them. It doesn't work that way. And I suggest you've got to have a really good relationship with good, strong, trustworthy, I use that word carefully, trustworthy Australian partners. And that's how it'll work.
So have you sold a few cars in the last week?
Yes, yeah, it's definitely, we've been talking gloom and doom for a few months now. There's definitely been a lift. And you notice that the weather's much nicer out there as well. And that's brought people back to the businesses. We're just seeing a lot more people on the ground, a lot more inquiry. And look, leads are definitely taking longer to convert into sales. If we think back 1 or 2 years ago, even at the height of the whole EV hybrid subsidy, people clambering on board thing, where people were just walking in and saying, "Can I have that one, please?" And they have it now. People are taking a lot longer to get from the point of walking in or making an online inquiry to actually committing and putting money on the table. And it's just like the way that it has worked has changed. And I suspect if your old school thinking says, they walk in there, do the road to a sale, they've got to walk straight to the desk, go into the business matter, walk out with a car, that's kind of changed, particularly for businesses like us. There's a lot longer lead time you have to work with. And if you're prepared to work with it, that's fine. But things have definitely changed.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the doom and gloom out there, the statistics suggest that the doom and gloom might be a little bit gone, in that we have had the statistics for the month. And while new is down across the board, if I flick over to the other page I have here, import passenger market shows recovery. So the used passenger vehicle market is showing signs of a robust recovery, making a 10.1% increase year on year. A total of 8,730 units registered for the month, up from 7,931 in August 2022. Toyota, of course, is the top brand. The Aqua, of course, smashing everyone else, with Nissan and Mazda doing well as well. Commercial still not that great, 7.9% down on last year. which is interesting because you think maybe some of those the ESC rule issues might have been mitigating themselves by now. But a overall solid month for imports. Does that track to your thinking, Graham?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're all seeing a lift in activity, a lift in sales, registrations, absolutely. And the commercial thing, it's still really hard to buy affordable commercial vehicles. The ESC thing, you're right, it still hasn't worked its way through. People are still buying commercial vans. I mean, the Hi-Ace, the Caravan, the NV350 and things, but they're still, by comparison, really late model and quite expensive. And so until we see a recovery in either the affordability for buyers to step into a late model commercial vehicle, or the prices come down significantly in Japan, I think we're going to see those numbers tracking along at a pretty even keel.
Plus, I imagine the clean car fees on those must be a little bit juicy in the import world.
Well, today they are, yeah. Yeah, they are. I mean, you're paying a $2,000 or $3,000 clean car fee on top of your van. It starts to bite.
Yeah, no, exactly. One thing I never really necessarily understood or saw carry through is I did a trip up to Japan just before ESC came in, and had a look around, saw it was there, blah, blah, blah. A lot of discussion back then about people movers being converted to vans because they were easy to get with ESC. Did that ever kind of happen, or was that a bit of a blip?
I don't know. Look, maybe it has somewhere I don't know about. I mean, there's always never say never. But no, it didn't. And it probably coincided, I guess, with a bit of a downturn in the market in general, where affordability, and we've talked about it, affordability for people that need people movers. So they've got, 5 kids, 4 kids, 1 income, 1.5 incomes, no income, and they need the bigger vehicle. So the affordability in that marketplace also crashed with the obligations under the triple CFA, with tighter financial circumstances, and those buyers, while not priced out of the market entirely, they've certainly found it a lot harder to obtain finance because it's always on finance to step into anything at all, let alone moving up to a $15,000, $16,000 multi-seater. So I think even if you could, the market wasn't as healthy as it was beforehand.
Yeah. Now, if we triple over to the new car market, new car sales are down across the board, which was highly expected. New vehicle market was 6,984 new passenger cars year on year, so 36% down. Toyota still at the top, followed by Kia, Mitsubishi. A few of the brands there. RAV4 was the top model, followed by the Outlander and the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. BEV registrations were down 2/3 year on year, with the BYD Atto 3 leading on 131 units. Again, expected to have a little bit of a blip there because those BEV companies delivered as many as they could before the rebate dropped. And also, I think Tesla tends to be, if there's a ship-in, they deliver a lot. Has a bit of ship-in. So that is something there. But I know a lot of the BEV guys, now that we're hearing a lot more about what we discussed last week with National committing to kill the clean car rebate, are really getting out there and pushing their fleets and pushing their customers to say, now's the time. If you want $7,000, now's the time. You won't be getting it next year. Over in commercials, it's a 24.5% decrease, Ford leading, followed by Toyota and Mitsubishi. Ford Ranger was the top model, followed by Hilux, and followed by the Mitsubishi Triton. That are kind of carries through to be true there. So yeah, another interesting month for the new vehicle market. I'm surprised commercials weren't down more. And I suspect maybe there's some people who just had to take vehicles after missing out perhaps on the clean car cut. I think there's supposed to be a little bit of discounting out there to the clean car raise, I guess, in that situation. I think there's potentially a few people out there taking cars because the companies are potentially discounting to cover some of those fees. But a interesting month there because, as we discussed before, you'd be a brave person to go and buy a ute today, considering what will happen in a month and a half, 2 months' time, potentially.
Yeah,
potentially.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this to David on previous shows. We still don't know exactly what the hangover is on pre-ordered vehicles that are only now coming into the marketplace or being shipped. And so how many of those contracts that were signed, say, 4, 5, 6, 7 months ago for things like Rangers and stuff, when there's a real shortage, how many of those contracts now come due with stock landing? So, we don't know how many of these are actually new sales and how many are just pre-orders that have arrived finally that didn't make the cut beforehand.
Yeah, no, exactly. So hard to tell. Now, on that, now we discussed last week National committing to cut the clean car discount, and of course ACT was committing to cut the standard as well. National since, and I got to thank a certain member of the industry out there who travelled out to a public meeting of Christopher Luxon and Simeon Brown to ask them some questions. They've now suggested they will modify the clean car standard as well. They haven't detailed what that'll be. I would suggest it'll be stretching it out a little bit, maybe smoothing some of the targets a bit. I can't see them actually killing it. And also that they will implement road user charges for all vehicles. They haven't said how, they haven't said when, they haven't said what, but it's interesting that they are pushing in that direction. The comments around the road user charges were interesting. Their theory being if you're going to add them on electrics, they were supportive of the fact that it had been up that way for now, but I think it was time to end. They pointed out that Simon Bridges started that when there were like 9 electric cars on the road, and now there was 70,000. So yeah, they've committed that 100% ruck will begin on April 1st, but they want to move to everyone paying ruck. And I don't think that's a stupid idea. I understand it is technically, they argue it's technically difficult because it is quite expensive to potentially roll out that scheme across the market. And of course, some people argue ruck is a bit open to fraud and a few other things, but so are a lot of things, I guess. And one of the kind of comments and jest was that petrol would be 80 cents a litre and everyone would pay everything on their ruck. And I think that's fair. I think, why should it, it spreads the cost out in a far more even way, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think a universal truth of this is that you're absolutely right, is that if you look at a user pays model and say, well, the person that does 500 Ks a year, 1,000 Ks a year, are effectively being penalised to their registration costs and their fuel to subsidise, if you like, the person that does 100,000 Ks without paying road user charges. And I get the whole model. What I have a real issue with is this is going to be almost impossible to actually enforce. And you talk about the ability for it to be manipulated. I mean, I'm not pointing the finger here at any particular courier driver operators, but is there a courier van out there, a diesel courier van right now, road user charge that doesn't have a defeat device? I can imagine the market on Trade Me for odometer defeat devices on your regular vehicle, let alone EVs and things, if they simply come to pass. Yeah, us Kiwis, we're not terribly good sometimes at following the rules and therefore finding reasonably inventive ways around them. So I think logistically, great idea. I just cannot see how they can actually make road user across the board enforceable. It's going to be tough.
The argument goes that you go to eRuck or some kind of GPS tracked eRuck system, and New Zealand is a world leader in that technology. I mean, eRoad and other companies, Navman, have done massive things both here and overseas in regards to eRuck. Yes. And theoretically, you put a unit in every car, and they potentially aren't hideously expensive, and they could, maybe a couple of $100. Well, 1,000 Ks of ruck isn't exactly cheap either. And then you eliminate, you reduce the incidences of fraud, you make it easier for people to use, and you can be probably even a little more clever then around things like road pricing, around peak times, that kind of stuff. The problem you've got is getting 3.5 million cars to have something chucked on it in a period of time, which will be difficult. And then you've got the Marats, people who are like, I don't want the government tracking. Even if it's a ring fence system and it doesn't even send the data back, you'll still get people going, I don't want the government tracking me. They're going to be doing evil things. This is just the beginning of the end. Oh, the New World Order and microchips in my vaccines and all that kind of stuff. It would be a big sell politically to do that, I think.
I think you'd imagine there'd be a huge public backlash. I mean, there'd be a brave government that tries to introduce some sort of system like that. And you're right, that's how it'll be seen. It'll be seen as tracking. And then the flip side to it is, can you imagine? I'm looking around me now, half of the constituents out here, bless them in West Auckland, they can't even get their shit together to get registration on their car by walking down to the post shop, let alone dealing with the magnitude of an online eRuck or eRoad system in their vehicle.
Because if you tie the registration to that system, then they can't drive their car, because the second they drive onto the road, the system's going to go, you haven't paid your registration.
And do you think they care? Really? Really?
Well, I guess it depends on if it starts automatically billing them fines for it.
Yeah. Again, great idea. Love the idea. I think it's actually a really fair and equitable system. I just can't imagine how they're going to pragmatically make it work and how they're going to sell that to the general public. Good luck.
So do you do it as half the, you launched as the traditional system, though I understanding one of the things they're discussing now is just ditching the labels. There's no need for the labels anymore. Number plate recognition is good enough. The police computers half the time in a lot of the cars these days have a camera that just tells them what's going on with the car in front anyway. Then you make it an option. Because I know I would take the option of getting an ERUC unit rather than having to deal with going and getting a label, jumping online and calculating my mileage myself. I imagine most farmers and commercial entities would, because the off-road stuff can then not be counted, which is quite appealing. So you make it an option. Then at least people have the choice. Isn't that what everyone's after? They just want choice. They want to choose what they want to do for themselves. They could choose between the old-fashioned paper system. Well, it's not really a paper system, the online system, but they don't have to put a label in the window anymore, but they don't get tracked. Or they go with the other system. Who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
Hybrid model. Let's go get jobs at the Ministry of Transport and figure this out, Richard. We have all the answers. I think we could do it.
Yeah, well, the big brain who was working on this, a mutual friend of ours in Wellington, of course, shifted to Waka Kotahi. So after writing a report about all this stuff, I think he wasn't entirely happy about what was going on at the ministry at the time. Though I've heard lately, and I think we kind of touched on this last week, there's been significant change at the ministry, and perhaps certain people we've talked about before making certain decisions around certain things are no longer necessarily at the front row of making those decisions. So that's an interesting one for those in the Beltway will no doubt understand. And if not, send me a LinkedIn message and I'll try and explain it. But yeah.
Smarter than us looking at the tea leaves. And I imagine there's quite a lot of the civil service right now that are looking in their teacups this morning going, what's the address for Seek again? Is that where you go? Because let's face it, every signal has been given out there that the civil service is going to be restructured. It's going to have job cuts. It's going to have contracts cut. And now that both parties are talking about it, Labor has just woken up to the idea that perhaps they spent a little bit too much money on consultants and on civil service or public service. And it's probably a difficult time to be in Wellington, considering what your options are. And if you look at our sector, when it comes to transport and environment, again, what is going to be the must-have stuff and what is going to be the stuff that's going to be thrown to one side? Are you safe?
You wouldn't want to own a lot of office space on Lambton Quay at the moment.
No, you certainly wouldn't. No, that's for sure. No.
Yeah. Now, let's jump on to something totally aside. Couple of videos to go check out from me. We went and had a look around the new Kia EV9 last week, and then that's gone up as a video this week. Interesting vehicle. Great to see a new option out there in the market for big SUVs. We kind of had a lot of small electric vehicles pottering around, but not any big ones. So this is a full-size 3-row SUV. It can tow, I think, 1,500, though that's not been confirmed yet. A big vehicle. We'll probably take that one on a road trip at some point, Graham. It looks pretty...
How muchy?
Sorry?
How muchy?
So it starts at just over $100,000.
Okay, so yeah, again, we need to get that. We need to break into that, I suppose, sub 80, even sub 70 market to compete against the conventional ICE bigger SUVs without going into European pricing. That I would have thought is the holy grail to attain, is that sort of $70,000 to $75,000 well-spec'd, well-set-up SUV. That's an EV. That's it. With a known brand.
I guess the question is, are a lot of those vehicles transacting at that price still? I mean, a full-fruit Santa Fe or Kia high-end Sorrentos, it's not that far off that space these days. I'm jumping in I'm going to take a Ford Territory Platinum for a drive this afternoon. And what's that retailing at in New Zealand? Let's have a look here. Do some Googling on the run.
Territory Platinum.
Yeah, Ford Territory not Territory. Yeah, Ford
I say
not
territory.
Territory. Ford
No.
Everest platform. Ford
Gonna
Everest
say.
platform. Sorry, I'm
They
about
they are,
5 years
aren't they?
behind.
They're New Zealand's version of the blacked out Tahoe or Expedition in America. You know, that's New Zealand's version of that. It's like the ultimate. It's like out of my way, little man type driving on the road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Big chrome grille and stuff on it. That's $85,000. So, and that's smaller than this Kia. This Kia's got a 3.4 meter, 3.2 meter wheelbase, 3.4 meter wheelbase. It is massive. It's massive.
That's a big
Huge. Totally other end of the scale. We've got so that's, you can jump onto AutoTalk and there's a link there, or you can go straight to the EVs and Beyond YouTube channel. A little bit of cross promotion here. Or if you go direct to the EVs and Beyond YouTube channel, you'll see we've put up a video of the I went and had a drive of the standard range BYD Dolphin. And I've actually been having, and I know you shouldn't engage, but I've been having an argument online overnight with someone about this car.
That cannot end well, Richard. I know you're arguing. Someone right now this morning is feeling a bit butthurt.
That's not.
It's probably not you.
Yeah. So there's, and this guy is known for being quite aggressive towards BYD in regards to their vehicles, to the point where I think he's been banned from test driving them. But at a retail dealership, he's not a media. Now the BYD Dolphin MG4 thing is a bit of a debate out there in the EV circles at the moment. This is EV nerd stuff, but I'm sure people are interested because, particularly if you're marketing new cars, it's always interesting to see what people say. MG4 is a great vehicle, great price. Starts mid 40s with a 51 kilowatt motor, and once you get to the low to mid 50s, you're getting mid 50s, you're getting a 64 kilowatt battery. BYD has, I think, decided they're a little more premium, and their Dolphin, so same size car, pretty much exactly within, I think, 3 millimeters, starts at $49,990, but it's only a 45 kilowatt battery. For 56, you get a 60 kilowatt battery, but the magic of EV batteries, it's about the same as the 64. The Dolphin, compared to the base model MG4, is a lot higher spec. Properly spec'd out vehicle, European level spec. But it has quite low power comparatively. So the motor itself only outputs 70 kilowatts. Whereas the MG4 and the entry level puts out, I think, 125, somewhere in that ballpark. And people are criticizing BYD for launching this insipid, slow version in New Zealand.
Underpowered, yep.
Yes, right. And I guess the argument from BYD New Zealand is the car that they're targeting with this is the Toyota Corolla hybrid. Then people who want EVs will buy it, and really like it will buy it. But what they want to do is target the Toyota Corolla hybrid of fleets, and for them they've got to kind of get close to that. They end up at being about 43 after discount. I think a Toyota Corolla hybrid after discount is, well, I don't think it gets a discount anymore, but in mid spec, so lower spec than this BYD, is high 30s, mid to high 30s.
That's council spec. Council spec, in other words.
Yeah. This is not council spec. It's a lot higher than council spec, but it is a bit more expensive than the thing. But these people this guy's online arguing, well, this thing's got no power. It's 12 seconds 0 to 100, slow as a wet week. No one will want it. Blah 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 blah. It's the same power output as a Toyota Corolla hybrid. And you've probably had a Toyota Corolla hybrid as a rental at some point. They're not that bad.
There's nothing wrong with them.
Yep.
And look, we sell hybrid Aquas, Richard. There's nothing wrong with them either. 99% of the time that drivers drive these cars, that's all they need, honestly.
Yeah.
If that's the case, God help the salesman selling small little Suzuki, Altos and things like that, and Solios. I didn't realise we're in a horsepower race.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's what we've fallen into. You got some people within the EV community who've lost sight of what people really want, and that is that they just want an efficient, cheap car that feels comfortable, has space, has the spec, and it doesn't matter who said every EV has to smoke everyone else off the line. That's just not the reality. And in fact, some of the brands understand that. We've got an MGZ SEV in our fleet, and when that originally came out, that had 150 kilowatts and 350 newton meters. That thing would fry tires. And the brand, as it updated that vehicle, and then now in its other vehicles, have derated the drivetrain because they're realizing not every car needs all the power. But of course, by saying that in my review and saying this is completely adequate around town, and because of it, its low power level is incredibly frugal, I apparently am a paid sycophant to the New Zealand motoring industry. Yeah.
Well, last time, look, Richard, you were part of the New Zealand motoring industry, so yeah, sorry. What do people expect you to say? And I'd argue and say that your take, and I'm not probably gearing your tires here, but your take on vehicles and what people actually look at and what they actually need is probably a much better one than many of the shut your ears so-called motoring journalists out there writing for publications, where I think people don't really need to know about how it handles in the sunny climes of Spain with the top down, because we're actually real people here, and we drive real cars, and we do real people shit like go to the shops and take the kids to school and do the grocery run and the dog to the vet. We're not really interested in whether we can smoke the tyres, but we do want to know whether the thing is actually practical, pragmatic, comfortable, roomy, spacious, and has a reasonable range if it's an EV, or it's not going to run out of fuel around the corner if it's a ICE. That's the stuff that counts. And I think, to be fair, you get that, and your writing gets that, and a lot of journalists could probably take a leaf out of your book because you actually are a bit more realistic about it. Sucks to be that guy banned from the showroom, though. Ooh, what are you going to do to get banned from a dealership showroom these days?
Yeah. I guess there's nothing like joining groups for a particular type of vehicle or vehicle brand, and then basically crapping repeatedly on that brand within the Facebook groups.
Yeah, that's not going to work out well for you.
So it's actually an interesting discussion now. Is it just a little warning out there to those people who do run around being silly people in Facebook groups? Is that the brands do watch them now? The brands have people engaging in those groups and keeping an eye on them and just observing what's going on with their brand. They are watching. Anyway, that's enough,
Mr. Smith.
Yes. That's enough of that stuff. Let's move on to some actual industry news. Heartland Bank's motor division grew 13.5% in financial year 2023. In spite of declining sales volume in the motor market, Heartland Group Motor Holdings Limited has announced a net profit after tax of $95.9 million for the financial year ended June 30. It says on an underlying basis, financial year 2023 impact was $110 million. The Heartland Bank's motor division recorded 13.5% growth in financial year 2023. Pleasingly, this growth was achieved in a market where total new and used car sales in the New Zealand market were down by 6.2% in the same period. And this time, Heartland saw new business grow by 11%. Why didn't I add that to the screen, silly boy?
I don't know, but so Heartland are predominantly in the new franchise sector. That seemed to be their lending base now. They've moved predominantly into new.
Yeah, they do a lot of used stuff I know of, particularly through brokers, and they're doing fairly good volume through that. But it goes back to what we've discussed multiple times now on this podcast, is that mortgage rates going up is a good time for finance profitability.
Yes,
because that 8, 9, 10, 11% finance package you're offering them, sometimes higher depending on your client, isn't looking so bad compared to refixing their mortgage at 7% or something like that.
So be careful with that, Richard, because to be fair, if you can buy money out there and sell it for 8, 9% to your clients right now on a real market basis, could you let me know where? Because the market has moved several clicks up from that in recent times. I think
new car market on professional rates.
Yeah, okay. New, used, no. That's just fairy tale.
What are the rates floating out there at the moment?
So I think a reasonable package now between sort of 12 and 15% is the range. And that depends obviously on your buy rate with your wholesaler. But don't forget, we are buying money at real rates. We're not having it subsidised on any other end of the product. Yes, of course, there's still the 0% deals and bits and pieces, but that's all just subsidised from somewhere. You're paying for it, you just don't know where. But in real money terms, the buy rates, we're scraping into the high 9s to 10s now in buy rates.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, this is a fun one. Fairgo investigates West Auckland dealer. A West Auckland dealer is under the spotlight after featuring on Fairgo with customers claiming they were left in the lurch following successful appeals in the Motor Vehicle Disputes Tribunal. The episode spoke to 2 disgruntled customers, Emma Lato and Alexander Pantelides, I hope I got that right, who shared similar bad experiences after purchasing faulty cars from Newlyn Car Yard Easy Sell run by Joseph Scudder. They both were successful in their tribunal complaints, but claimed Scudder didn't follow through on any of the rulings, and they became uncontactable. Records show between 2021 and 2022, 7 other customers who bought faulty cars from Scudder's company also ended up at the tribunal. This one, I think, is very much in the process. I believe MB is in the process of banning him, allegedly, possibly.
Yeah. This story has a couple of things in it that are worth unpacking, Richard. And the first one that you just touched on is, how the hell is this guy still getting a license? You read through and see the applications that he's made versus the warnings he's had around professional conduct with a variety of issues with the Motor Vehicle Disputes Tribunal. It just says that the system right now, the licensing system as we have right now, is an absolute joke. And I'm not advocating we go back to the old days of sticking $100,000 in the tin and fronting up to a bureau in Wellington. But you've got to say, if you can conduct yourself like this over a period of years and still every year just click the button and get your license for another year, what on earth is the point? There seems to be no enforcement, but more importantly, absolutely no checks and balances at the end where you're putting your money into the tin and saying, I'd like to be a dealer for another year, please.
Yeah. So I can confirm that after the Figo got involved, MB now says that Scudder and his company, Ford Motion 101 Limited, has had a 5-year motor vehicle trading ban, and that he is now working to resolve the cases that were brought to them by Figo as soon as possible.
He's got 20. He's registered 20 companies in the last, was it 10 years? I think.
Yeah, so a lot. He received COVID funding, all sorts of other stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's appealing some of the cases. Have you bumped that's out your way? Have you bumped into this company before, Graham?
No, but many decades ago, as a fledgling in the motor vehicle industry, I sold salvage. I actually started my career out in the salvage end, working with Turner's, in those days, Turner's Car Auctions Damaged Vehicle Division down on Alfred Street. And we used to sell write-offs, smashed up cars, that sort of stuff. And I'm fairly certain that this Mr. Scudder, Joseph Scudder, who's about my age, I think, he was one of our clients back then buying write-offs and patching them up and putting through the car fair. In those days, it was the car fair, repairing write-offs and putting them there. And I seem to recall back then he was a master of the old, the fleecy jacket with the sheepskin collar and the whole. He looked like a car dealer out of the 70s at that stage too. This is back in the late 80s, and I'm sure there can't be too many Joseph Scudders running around. But if the shoe fits.
Interestingly, there's I can't find a website for his dealership, which is always a great sign. So he's definitely not on Bioscore, I'd suggest.
Possibly not, no.
God, the car fairs would have been notorious for that kind of stuff. We sold my mother's car once, which was an absolute wreck of a Toyota Synos coupe, paint peeling off, the interior was a mess from her dog. It was just dreadful, but rust, all sorts. And literally, like a week later, it turned up at the car fair in Ellerslie with a good rattle can spray paint job on the door and car seat covers incredibly tightly fixed to the seats. It was certainly a very quick flip.
They were the spray coat overhaul. Remember spray coat cans? The spray coat overhaul and the Repco back in the days, whatever they used to be called. You could buy seat cover sets for about $29.99 and this horrible brown beige stitching, and then ta-da, brand new car, the car fair. Oh my goodness, let's just not go back those days again, please, folks.
Oh, that is classic. You've never done any of those yourself, mate? I mean, honestly, you've never gone and tried to squeeze a dodgy car out the car fair over your years?
No, I have sold a car at the car fair, and that was back in my misspent youth. I was about 17, I think. It was a Triumph Herald, and I actually had painted it with spray coat cans, light powder baby blue spray coat cans. I took it to the car fair, and I sold it. Actually, it was the Manukau car fair back in those days, and that's where I sold it with a fresh spray coat job.
Oh, I used to love the car fairs. We'd go to the Manukau one. It was where I devastatingly learned that my feet were too big to own a Mini. But the car fairs were certainly a fun place to go and look
Yeah.
for stuff, as was the free page and the Trade and Exchange. But
Yeah.
some fun stuff there.
Ghost those on
Right.
Thursday.
Yes. Now, Atico Group announces South Island dealership changes. The distributor for Jeep, Ram trucks, Alfa Romeo, Fiat, and Abarth, Atico Group NZ, has appointed new dealer representation in Christchurch and Dunedin. Effective from September 1, Euromark assumes the role of the official Jeep and Ram dealer for the Canterbury region, in addition to Alfa Romeo and Fiat, located in central Christchurch at 120 St. Asaph Street. The Euromark dealership will be a comprehensive destination for automotive enthusiasts. Yep. They are kind of enthusiast brands, I guess. And then Andrew Sims Group, who of course have the brands quite prominently in Auckland, are taking over in Dunedin. Interestingly, I think the Andrew Sims stuff in Dunedin is actually run by Andrew Sims. He kind of sort of semi-retired down to Dunedin. I think he got bored. He's been running BYD down there, and he's back running things. So assuming he'll have a little bit of a hand in keeping an eye on the Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and Alfa Romeo stuff down there. Yeah.
Let's face it.
You used to own
big trucks. Big trucks.
Yes.
If you can build it, they will come. Simple as that.
You used to have a Ram, Graham. You tempted to have another one?
I'd love another one. If somebody out there in Ramland right now is listening and saying, "Hey, Graham, would you like to be a brand ambassador for the new Ram?" I'd say I will sell out commercially absolutely tomorrow. I'd like one, please. I do like me a big truck.
Probably not much worse on fuel than your Mustang.
I took the Mustang to Waiuku on Wednesday, and on the motorway I was achieving 7.9 litres per 100k, which actually isn't too shabby. I'll have you know. And that may not be extending all of the 5 litres capability. Let's face it, I drove like grandma all the way down there. But as an average, I get between 10 and 11 litres per 100k, and most of my driving is around town. That's not too bad.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Right, Tasman Toyota General Manager appointed Chief Executive. Tasman Toyota General Manager Craig Clark has been elevated to Chief Executive at the beginning of August as James Crichton stepped aside to remain a director and shareholder in the Toyota store. Tasman Toyota was formed in 2002, evolving from Gray and Inch Toyota. What a great name. The original company being established in 1946. I can't imagine it was selling Toyotas back in 1946. The store is New Zealand's longest operating Toyota franchise and has been trading on its current site since 1963. That's an impressively long run on one site. Clark and Crichton say their focus remains on the well-being of their staff and continuing to create positive social impact around mobility, sustainability, and community initiatives for the wider Taranaki community. Yes, that is a nice reappointment there. Good to see some young, fresh faces coming through and leading dealerships.
And isn't it good to see, once again, promoting from within? For so long there, we had the mentality that we had to bring in outside talent to run our businesses. But once again, Toyota, well done. I mean, the good people from within the business coming on through, that's a good thing to see.
Exactly. Giltrap MG dealership opening in Newmarket. On September 1, the Giltrap MG dealership will open its doors for business at 82 Great South Road, Newmarket. Work is already underway on a new purpose-built Giltrap MG at 48 Great South Road, the former Cooper store, which is scheduled to open in 2024. New Zealand Giltrap Group says the MG brand will be a key part of its efforts to allow more Kiwis to drive zero-emissions vehicles. Giltrap Group represents the world's best automotive brands, and the MG is an outstanding addition to our portfolio. Giltrap Group Retail Chief Executive and Chief Marketer Dane Fisher says. Now, this is an interesting one. I actually bumped into Dane a couple of months back, interesting in the queue for Kelly Tarleton's with my daughter. And we were chatting there, and he indicated then that they were certainly on the look for some new opportunities in regards to brands, in part because previously, they do fleet deals. They want to appeal to a broad range of the market. They've got some high end stuff, but also they have their brands down market too. Previously, kind of at that entry level, that sub 40,000 range, they had some of their European stuff. They had Nissan, they had Holden, Kia, but the reality is most of those brands have moved up market, particularly Kia, Nissan. Now there's very little in the Nissan range under the high $40,000 mark. Kia has a few of their SUVs down there, but they're moving up market just because they are becoming better vehicles every year. And so I think having MG come in underneath, being that new, value champion, and also electrified brand for Giltrap, is a big thing. I also think MG getting a somewhat primed spot in Newmarket is a big thing for the brand as well, a big move there. Because previously their Auckland Central representation was I guess a small hole in the wall satellite of the Wairau dealership from Tristram. So that's a big move there for them.
And it indicates, I think, also there's a realisation that the economy is not going to get well, as it were, anytime soon. And having brands back into that new vehicle brands back into that sort of sub $50,000 territory is actually really important, because that might be far more of a driver of our new car sales in the next couple of 3 years than we think, if we want to retain ourselves as a new car business.
Yeah, well, MG will sell you a completely serviceable small car for, I think, $21,000 with a 7-year warranty and a whole pile of other things chucked in. Could say what you like about Chinese cars. It's hard to argue that they're not terrible now, and they are offering some pretty solid value propositions. Now, with
they've caught the rest of the manufacturers napping, or distributors. They've caught them napping completely. And if you want to argue why the Chinese brands are so popular, it may not be because they're the best cars, but there was just this wide open gap in the market the other brands have walked away from. Come right in, the water's fine, and they've capitalised upon it.
Exactly. Now, with that, we get the consequential move. The Auckland Cupra Garage is moving to Grey Lynn. So the Giltrap Group is moving the Cupra Garage from its current retail site at 48 Great South Road, Newmarket, to the former Audi Approved Plus showroom located at 174 Great North Road, Grey Lynn. I think that's the old Percy Cars site up in Grey Lynn. Yeah.
Don't know, actually. It's been a long time since I've really been along there.
A new Cupra sign has already appeared on the forecourt at 174 Great North Road, Grey Lynn, and Cupra New Zealand General Manager James Yates has confirmed to this publication that the site will be operational from October 2nd. As previously announced by the Giltrap Group earlier this week, it has acquired the MG franchise for Central Auckland from September 1 and will soon begin transforming the premises at 48 Great South Road, Newmarket, into a dedicated space for the Chinese New Energy brand. We kind of already covered that. So that's probably good for that. That puts Seat up with its other kind of brethren, the Giltrap controlled Volkswagen Group brands. They're all kind of in a strip there. Kind of take your flavour of Volkswagen Group product as you want from a long strip of Great North Road. And Colin and the team can see everything basically from outside their window at their relatively new building there mid on the strip. So that's another good addition. Now, this one's really not industry, but it's a nice one to discuss. We kind of just missed it last week, and I love a bit of Formula One, so I'm going to put it up there anyway. And that is that Turner's sponsored driver achieves F1 dream. We'll expand this beyond Turner's. A lot of people in the industry have had a hand in the career of Liam Lawson, and congrats to Liam Lawson. Turner's have been a sponsor of him. Other industry players have. Twitter New Zealand, of course, had him in the Twitter Racing Series. He's another former participant of the Twitter Racing Series that's made it to Formula One. A number of the current drivers have. Q Motorsport champion Liam Lawson has achieved his ultimate goal, taking a seat in the AlphaTauri Formula One car for the Dutch Grand Prix, qualifying in 20th place and finishing in 13th place. It was a good result. As a reserve F1 driver for Red Bull and for AlphaTauri, Lawson achieved his dream of driving the race at Zandvoort last week, thanks to an unfortunate accident ruling out Daniel Ricciardo. He broke his hand, the poor bugger. He's also getting to drive this weekend in Monza. I was
going to say, is he confirmed for Monza?
He is confirmed for Monza. Yep.
Nice.
There's some rumours he might get Singapore as well, but we just don't know. Lawson has been sponsored by Turner since 2018, when at age 16 he needed the support to drive in the German ADAC F4 competition. Turner's also supported the current Kiwi IndyCar driver Scott Dixon when he was on his path to international motorsport success. And we've just got to, I think we've got to spread some of the love there. The New Zealand motoring industry, pretty much name any major dealer group, any major company, has usually invested an awful lot of money into motorsport, and that applies to the new and the used car industry. We know some of the works that PJ Johnson's done with other companies in supporting motorsport, and it's paying real dividends. We have major players in most of the world's key
disciplines. We do.
Disciplines. If we look, we have Liam operating this week in Formula One. We have drivers in F2. We've got drivers, Mitch who's very heavily Giltrap supported in Formula E. We have a dealer, in the form of, and I'm forgetting her name very briefly, the Suzuki dealer out of Dunedin.
Emma Gilmore.
Sorry, guys, Emma Gilmore racing this week in Formula Extreme for McLaren. The 80th anniversary of Bruce McLaren's death, and 80. It's the anniversary of Bruce McLaren of some form. Someone was mentioning it in our Teams chat this week, and we've got Emma Gilmore, a Kiwi Suzuki dealer from Dunedin, operating at the highest level of her motorsport for this. We've got Hayden Paddon's just been named the European Rally Champion in a New Zealand-supported car. And then we've got Shane Van Gisbergen, who pretty much is untouchable in the V8 Supercar series.
SVG, we are not worthy. SVG, we are not worthy.
Going over to NASCAR, winning his first race, and then, sure, that was a street circuit. None of the other guys had done it. He had an advantage there. He came out the next week in a circuit, in a circle one. What do they call them? An oval, and came 10th.
Yeah.
We are, call it what you like, we are doing very well in motorsport at the moment, and well, a lot of that is down to the talent that is out there. That talent means very little without some dollars behind it. And our industry, the New Zealand motoring industry, new, used, supplier, finance, insurance, all of it, they've all been heavily involved in supporting this young talent. And clearly, they're pretty good at picking who to throw some money at. So, well done. Round of applause, everyone.
Absolutely. Yes. Yay. Maybe forget Scott Dixon is now the second, by a long lead, the second most winningest, it's a phrase, driver in Indy history, only behind AJ Foyt. And I think he's chasing AJ Foyt's record now, 55 victories in Indy. That's
and he's going on nearly 2 decades in Indy, or Indy and kart.
Yeah.
And he's not just a backmarker. He is, I think, number 2 in the championship this year. He's still got a chance of, there's like 1 or 2 rounds left, and he's still got a theoretical chance of taking the championship this year.
I think that's theoretical, but that's right. Just incredible. We are a motorsport nation, and I know sometimes there'll be a few green MPs in the background of Wellington going, "Oh no, we don't want to hear this." But the truth of it is, we're car people and we're motorsport people, right from the grassroots all the way through. And here it shows in the world stage. We're really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the guys really want, the greenies really want to get in it, they can too. As we said, Mitch Evans, Formula E, Emma Gilmore, Formula Extreme. So yeah, and again, Mitch isn't just a backmarker; he is winning, and that is awesome. That's awesome. And his brother, I think his brother Wayne won when they had it the side race, which was the support race, which was a Formula E pace one, and he of course is now one of the lead guys at McLaren in Auckland. So yeah, great, well done, industry, highly. Well, good results. Anyway, I think that's us for this week. Not a overly long one this time around, which is good. Now, next week, we will have more stats coming out. We should have a magazine out next week as well. If you are going to the e-mobility summit in Auckland, you will see me there. I'm hosting or convening a panel on day 1 at 11 a.m. with a few people from the industry. So don't miss that. Do go to that EVs and Beyond YouTube channel that I mentioned earlier on, because perhaps over the weekend or next week there'll be a video up there with me, Graham, and a couple of Mustangs.
Well, a Mustang and an electric car, Richard.
Mustangs, Graham. And yeah, we'll be back next week with more from EVs and Beyond. It's a Mustang, Graham.